Spiral is a movie about Chris Rock and his vengeance against a serial slapper. And a movie that's got some serious daddy issues. The movie begins with a police officer in hot pursuit of Uncle Sam before spotting one of his favourite things in the world and deciding to get inside of it. A manhole. After entering the man's hole, he proceeds to be outsmarted by a mannequin before being outsmarted by a pig. A pig that is also somewhat of a train enthusiast as he takes him down to the subway to see one of his favourite trains. See it really fast. He wakes up with his arms tied behind his back with razor wire, all the while his tongue is clamped shut in a vice, having what you would describe as not a very good time. A TV comes on with an absolutely hilarious rejected VTuber voice.
Hello, Detective Boswick. I want to play a game.
That tells him he's got about 2 minutes until his rather rushed meeting with the train. The voice asks what that tongue do though. Apparently put innocent people behind bars. And because that tongue of his has led to the unfair imprisonment of many people, if he wants to live, he must use his own body weight to remove it. But after pulling his hands free and attempting to tear the device from his face, like a bad case of herpes, the only solution is to violently tear it off. Which he does. Exactly as the train arrives. He must be more of a 2-for-1 kind of guy. A big thank you to Private Internet Access for sponsoring this video. A VPN hides your IP address from people who may want to do harm or just for privacy reasons, as well as giving you the ability to make it appear as if your IP address is coming from a different country, giving you all of the benefits that come with that. Private Internet Access is the world's most transparent VPN that not only encrypts your connection, but never records or stores any of your personal data, meaning that no one's ever gonna know about that freaky Twilight fanfiction you love so much. Except me. I know. With Private Internet Access, not only is your data secure, but you have the ability to digitally change your IP address's location to appear as if you're in one of 83 different countries, meaning that streaming service region locking is merely a suggestion. It's also one of the few VPNs that has peer-to-peer file sharing, so you can send or receive your favourite questionable memes without worry. Available across all platforms and with 30 million downloads worldwide, one membership alone can protect an unlimited amount of devices. Thank God, the Hello Kitty iPad is secure. And what I like best about Private Internet Access is that I can connect to a Japanese server and watch oddly specific slice of life anime that I would most definitely be made fun of for watching if anybody knew what I was actually up to. So if you're trying to hide your shame, or just wanting to be generally safer online, head to piavpn.com/bigwill to get up to 83% off your VPN service, as well as getting 4 months for free with a 2-year plan. Comes out to around $2 a month and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. We then see Chris Rock's character, Zeke Banks, apparently about to hit the slopes with his buddies, judging by their facial attire. They participate in the wholesome fun group activity of breaking into hotel rooms and sticking up drug dealers, before immediately finding themselves on the other end of many guns, as many police officers aim them at them. Turns out Banks is actually a homicide detective who thought that it would be a great idea to put himself in a position where he'd potentially do a few homicides of his own. As punishment for his non-sanctioned undercover operation that could have potentially seen the lives of many innocent people lost due to his clear selfish and obnoxious actions, he's given a little slap on the wrist and assigned a new detective, William Shank, because I too couldn't think of a more suitable punishment for such a misuse of power, quite like being forced to make awkward small talk in the morning. Their first course of action is to investigate the train incident that's left a man looking like a dish of bolognese that went severely wrong. And back at the precinct, after they run out of Parmesan cheese and garlic bread, Banks is sent a suspicious unidentified USB stick that he proceeds to immediately connect to a police computer, followed by it connecting to a Russian server and downloading 5 petabytes of Russian femboy-related content, as the entire computer network now harvests crypto for a couple of slavs. A video plays with the same funny voice from the subway, leaving me to think, why did anyone involved in this movie think that voice was a good idea? The voice tells them that they're here to fix the state of the police, by quite literally turning them into multiple states. Multiple states of bloodied pulps. In the video, seeing a spiral painted on the side of the local courthouse, they head over there to find another present containing the tongue and badge of the detective killed, Detective Boz, a good friend of Banks. Well, he was a good friend of Banks. That night, he returns home from work after some maniac is out there turning cops into human meat piñatas to find his front door open. But after entering with his gun drawn, he finds his dad inside as the pair proceed to almost shoot each other to death for some good old-fashioned father-son bonding. Zeke's father being Marcus Banks, a now retired, highly respected member of the force who apparently likes to aim guns at his own son. We then see Detective Fitch and his partner Kraus find security footage from a pawn shop showing Boz chasing someone towards that manhole. Someone that Fitch recognizes as a local meth head named Benny due to his local meth head shenanigans, that he proceeds to hide from Banks, because screw that guy apparently. Fitch, apparently being on friendly terms with the aforementioned meth head, heads to where he thinks he'll find Benny, but instead ends up finding a pig mask on a mattress, before finding himself grabbed from behind, because if there's something to take away from this movie, it's that there's a lot of grabbing from behind. We see that Banks is supposed to meet with his dad for dinner, but instead of the usual greeting of walking in and shooting each other to death, we see a completely empty apartment and a hilarious flashback that's supposed to convince us that they're each 15 years younger, looking like they've just walked out of the fancy dress store. Another package is sent to the police department for Banks, containing yet another slightly dubious USB stick, which of course he proceeds to immediately plug into a police computer, which more than likely contains your fair share of confidential sensitive information. And once he's done closing all the pop-ups for hot local moms in his area, it plays a video with a spiral on the side of a truck, before showing a puppet of a pig in a location that they all recognize. And after finding the truck and opening the doors to reveal a pig carcass, they learn that this killer must seriously have something against vegans. After opening another package that was found in the truck, they find a box containing numerous fingers that belong to Detective Fitch, meaning that he's going to have a hard time counting to 10. After finding Fitch's body floating in a tub with a forbidden chastity cage attached to his face, another flashback plays to show what really happened to Fitch after being grabbed from behind. And unfortunately, it's not a nice relaxing back rub. It's a bad, non-relaxing game of tear your own fingers off. Fun for the whole family. A video recording plays of Fitch pulling a man over and executing him in cold blood due to him making an insult, and due to that, his finger counting days are now over. He's in a bathtub that's slowly filling up with water that's soon to reach exposed copper wiring that's going to bring a whole new meaning to the term bath bomb. The only way for Fitch to free himself is to bite down on the mechanism in his mouth, which in turn slowly rips the fingers from his hand, and slowly rip it does. One by one, Fitch's fingers are torn from his body, leaving him with nothing to beat his meat with, except his already quite beaten meat. His meat stumps. But that won't be a problem for him anytime soon, as he's too slow and takes a nice refreshing dip in the extra spicy bath. After learning from Fitch's partner that he was looking for Benny, they decide to stake out where he buys meth to get information from his dealer. Banks puts on a disguise and politely asks for 1 meth please, before handing over a paint bomb instead of money like the pesky little rascal he is, giving him and Schenk the opportunity to run up the stairs and kick in the door while his guard is off. And by his guard is off, I mean his guard is up and he proceeds to fire an Uzi at them. An Uzi that fires Nerf pellets apparently, as a thin layer of wooden wall is enough to protect them. Banks, using his position as a cop, never missing an opportunity for some good old-fashioned police brutality, throws him over the coffee table and snaps his leg in half before proceeding to hit it with a glass bottle to get information about Benny. And judging by the fact that his dealer hasn't seen him in over 2 days, chances are he's dead, as meth isn't exactly the type of thing you take a tolerance break from. As all of the deliveries and femboy-related content is being sent to Banks, they start to think that it could potentially be someone who knows him and someone who has a reason not to like him. So they go to see one of his potential enemies, an ex-cop and his old partner, who he snitched on for point-blank murdering a man, because apparently that's a thing police like to do. But after it seems like the ex-cop isn't the one responsible, they leave and another package arrives at the station the next morning before Schenk has arrived at work, because he has a thing for being fashionably late. Banks opens it up to find the puppet from the previous video wrapped in human skin, like some kind of demented cannibalistic pig in blanket. Well, technically, a note reads, "Am I getting under your skin, Detective Banks? While you're looking for more bodies to drop, I'll take your head." Before he notices a tattoo on the skin, the name Charlie, and the exact same tattoo that Schenk has on his arm. Well, used to have on his arm. Either he's at a Wish.com tattoo removal session, or someone looked at his skin and thought to themselves, I want that. Under the skin, Banks finds a small bottle of paint labelled Constantine Paints. And recognizing the brand from a store his father used to take him to as a child, they head into the back to find someone hanging around on the job who seems to have found the secret to instant weight loss. Removing all of your skin. Believing it to be Schenk, Banks menacingly stares at the floor for a bit because someone really needs to update this decor. On his way out of there, while responding to a call of an officer being attacked by someone wearing a pig mask, we see Banks' boss Angie receive a text from Marcus telling her to check a specific cold case file in a room locked in the basement. After realizing that the attack was just a distraction with his apparent clairvoyant abilities, Banks realizes that his boss is in danger and rushes back. As Angie enters the cold case room, that's actually surprisingly warm, the door shuts behind her, locking her in, and instead of shooting the creepy pig killer standing right there, she proceeds to not do that and shoot the door instead. She's gassed and continues to shoot literally everything else except what she should be shooting, before falling to the floor unconscious in a building full of deaf police as nobody could hear those gunshots. She wakes up restrained to a table with a cloth draped over her face, looking like the ghost costume Mum said we have at home. She plays a tape recording that accuses her of covering up all of the corruption in her department, and considering that there was a guy on the force up until about yesterday using his still intact fingers to shoot people due to a lack of sense of humour and an undeveloped penis, I'd say that's probably correct. So she'll be waterboarded by not water, but indeed boiling hot wax for a non-consensual facelift. The only way for her to save herself from this situation is to use a blade placed beneath her neck to sever her spinal cord and paralyze herself, meaning that she'd probably just die anyway, because how's she gonna get away from the wax then? The wax begins slowly pouring out, before not so slowly pouring out, and Banks finds out that she's in the cold case room that doesn't quite hold up to its name, as it's currently filled with boiling hot wax. She's being turned into a human-sized Yankee Candle as the blade begins slicing through her neck, but by the time Banks gets to her, she's looking like a rejected character from the House of Wax sequel, before rather inappropriately sticking his tongue down her throat and punching her in the chest, because he's just kinda freaky like that. He begins peeling the wax from her face, which inadvertently peels the face from her face. After learning that the station security camera had been tampered with, they used the logs to figure out that Banks' old partner had recently logged into the system with credentials that should have been removed 15 years ago. Whoops, I guess. But as he rushes to where he last saw his ex-partner, he himself is grabbed by the Bacon Man. We then see Banks' father Marcus searching a building with a spiral in it, before finding the building with many spirals in it. Don't ask me why he's there, because I really don't know. He finds one of the pig dolls as well as a collection of pig masks, as it looks like someone's got quite the special interest. And while he's busy looking at his phone, instead of looking at the dangerous situation that he's in, he's captured. Banks wakes up to see someone unconscious in front of him as he's handcuffed to a pipe. In what feels like deja vu and what's supposed to be the on-screen equivalent of this, he finds a saw on the ground and is about to use it on his arm, before finding a hairpin on the floor and breaking himself out like he's lockpicking in Fallout 3. After removing the cover from the restrained man's face and waking him up from his beauty sleep, he sees that it's his old partner. But before he can do anything about it, he plays a tape that says he can be saved, or he can stand back and throw the key in the trash. Suddenly, a machine is turned on that begins breaking glass and firing it into the back of the restrained man. Not exactly being the most ideal of back scratches, Banks repeatedly tries to save him as the machine turns itself off and on, until eventually solving the riddle and finding the key to the chains in the trash can and walking into the line of fire himself to free the man and getting some cool new scars in the process. But by the time he gets him free, much like the guy that he shot for no reason, he's dead. Except I bet this one hurt a bit more. After escaping from the room, he surprisingly finds a still alive, skin-wearing Schenk, who surprise surprise is the bad guy. 15 years ago, Banks' corrupt partner shot Schenk's father right in front of him, and he spent all of that time since practicing to become a cop so he can just kill them. The backstory he had about his family and baby was all made up, and after he was done using Benny to lure Boz into the underground, he used his clear talent of tattooing, which is maybe more of a viable career than killing people he dislikes, to tattoo Charlie onto his arm and slice off the flesh. And after he was done turning Benny into slices of doner kebab, he set it up to look as if it was him. And Marcus was captured in that building before, not because of his father's intuition, but because Schenk lured him there using Banks' phone. After kidnapping his dad and killing his friends, he proposes to Banks that they work together on this. Banks finds the dirty cops, and Schenk makes sure that the rest of the world finds the dirty cops' body parts. He calls the police, fires multiple shots to get them to come quickly, before handing the gun to Banks and telling him to follow. They enter a room to find Marcus hanging from a machine, with his blood being drained from his body through tubes into containers below, as it turns out that Schenk is really just a giant mosquito in disguise. He tells Banks that he's doing this to his father because when he was in charge with Angie, he was responsible for most of the corruption happening on the force. There's one shot left in the gun. Schenk tells him that he could either use it to shoot the target to free his dad, or use it to kill the killer. I'm not sure why shooting Schenk and then throwing something at the target was out of the question, but he proceeds to free his dad and then beat up Schenk. The police begin sawing their way through the door, but it's booby-trapped with a wire attached to Marcus that lifts him up, drops a weapon into his hand, and forces him to aim it at the police, causing them all to fire. And then fire some more. And then a bit more. And the movie then comes to an end with Schenk using all of the dad death as an opportunity to escape, and I'm sat here thinking that that was one of the corniest movies I've seen in a long time. I know Saw movies aren't exactly known for being highbrow intellectual cinema, but the entire time I was watching this, I had to keep double checking that I wasn't actually watching a direct-to-DVD cheap knockoff of Saw, where they somehow managed to get Chris Rock to act in it. And by Chris Rock act in it, I mean Chris Rock overact in it, as that's exactly what he does in every single one of his scenes. And I'm not sure if it's just because it's trying to be its own thing, but this feels like the least Saw movie I've ever seen, with the most redeeming qualities from the originals being the interesting traps and puzzles, which are evidently lacking from this movie, and instead replaced with a hilarious killer voice and a clear lack of IT safety. I'm not saying that I really like to watch people die in absolutely horrific manners in movies, but I'm also not saying that either. Before we finish things up, I'd just like to give a big thank you and a big shout out to all patrons and YouTube members, the people who every month continue to support this channel when YouTube makes it apparently obvious that they're not really a fan of the type of content I make. By becoming a YouTube member or patron, not only are you helping support the channel, but you also get access to the private Discord server, which in turn gives you access to uncensored versions of all videos going forward. So starting off with this week's new YouTube member signups, a big thank you to Streakier Girl 19, Cody McCollum, Spooky, Shurab Madak, Janos Gergo Laske, Mark Han, Hubert Sesverga, Buerchi, Mac Cole, Brendan Carson, Lavas Importados, and Raymondo. And heading over to this week's new Patreon signups, a big thank you to Kaho Rong, Dan, Kate, Trevor Lovelace, Lynn Stars, Katira, Malimasik, Paris, Joshua Rodonna, Shino Numa, Amelia Smith, Asuka Lover, Xander Kraufers, Josh Chell, Alta Wedgie, Tom Corsten, Yuhi Ni, McSeplins, Militia Ashcroft, Colton Chapman, Lachlan Williams, Tyo Regina, Dylan Anker, Zach, Brendan, Maxi Boy, Silas, Elizabeth Lemus, Amari Torrance, Benedict Tolonia, Burial Edmund, Joseph Hamill, SRH, Proofies, Caden Lantine, Bailey Clark, and Mariner Julius. So once again, a massive shout out and a big thank you to all of the YouTube members and patrons, and a big thank you to everyone else for watching.